go. Is it going?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So who wants to start us off? So the first one is reflect on historical thinking about the Shakers. To
Yeah.
review that, go to the Vimeo.
Yeah, I can start with that one. So kind of based on the video, the main thing that comes about from historical thinking is like having empathy for the situation that the people find themselves in. So for example, with the Shakers, they were in a society that was trying to liberate themselves from the like heavy religious background that they came from. So by having this like new way of life to follow that would be less stressful, it makes sense that they would want to join because they would like be taken care of for in the like cities of Zion and the meeting houses and all the people like sharing food, things like that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It was like some people thought it was kind of crazy because in the text, like they would dance naked at night and it would be kind of weird. But then you realize like it's all just one community, just praising God, and like everyone has equal rights. Like the men and women all like sleep on the same floor. And like actually there were higher elders of women, which was kind of weird in society, but in Shakerism it was like normal. So it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I think when analyzing the text, you have to kind of go beyond your own perspective and own way of thinking. Like he said in the video, he's like, we try to attempt to understand the reality of the situation when in reality, we never really fully understand without experiencing it. So it's important to just kind of take it in for not as we can apply it like to our lives, but just as it is, applying it to the time and kind of taking the extra steps beyond to see it from a different perspective.
Yeah, I think especially with going back to what you were saying, Ben, about how like having women as leaders was a new concept for them. It's just like for us, it just seems like an everyday thing. But then you have to like really just think about the historical context in the society in which they lived and like build off of that, or else you kind of just miss the point of what they were doing and why they were separating themselves from the rest of society.
Yeah.
Totally. To remind yourself of what the time was like and the circumstances presented back then and see how different that could be for those people.
Yeah, it was a patriarchy, and then all of a sudden, like Anne Lee comes out of nowhere, and she's like, "I'm gonna be the mother of Shakerism."
Yeah, just like screaming in churches, and then all of a sudden, just see Jesus Christ Himself.
Yeah, in prison.
Right.
All right. So is everyone okay with that one? Can we move
I
on?
think so. That's all I have to say about it. What about you, Anna?
Yeah, that's all I have to say. I think, yeah, it's important to go beyond the perspective that's different from your own and take everything in. So I think we went over that.
All right, so let's move to the next one. So Shakers rank out of 5 on the spectrum. Compared with later experiments in the economic equality, think of communism, they did very well economically. And then how much you explain this, why might the Shakers economic have done well for so long? So I thought it was like pretty interesting how everyone just sort of like they sort of like were nomads for 2.5 years, and then they found a spot that they settled down in and they just built in their own communities, and it just drew so much attention to people that they would literally sell their own land and they would give that money to the Shaker community. So I think that was one thing that like allowed them to prosper, was just like the people that would come in later on could have more money and wealth that could let them prosper for a lot longer.
Yeah, I think also the main thing that helped them get through it all is the fact that they all kind of thought the same way. Like in the beginning, they were all kind of just excited to be a part of it, but then afterwards, when they started actually laying down the rules and stuff, and just the way that they believed in worship, having everyone kind of set those rules together makes it so that they care more about their community, especially with one of their main beliefs being that order is the creation of beauty. That kind of just causes them to want to have their community be stable and balanced because it falls in line with what they believe God would want for them.
Totally. It was important that they were all on the same page because, you know, there wasn't as much comparison, and comparison is the thief of joy. In the text, it says, like, economically speaking, the ideal size of the cooperative community waxes and wanes with changes in technology. So it's important throughout the time that they were able to evaluate and adapt when necessary, while maintaining the principles that they've set themselves as a society.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, yeah, especially with just the way that everyone kind of agreed upon all the rules is a very interesting, I guess, almost that like example of, again, that high level socioeconomic, very much equality status, which also goes back to just the way that they believe that all genders were equal. They were very anti-nuclear family, which also helped because then instead of thinking about only, you know, every man for themselves or just like every man for their few, it's you have the opposite where you're everything you do is for the benefit of the community because you don't have that set family structure. You're just always going after what's best for everyone around you at all times.
Yeah, and Sam, what you were saying earlier about like the beauty of everything, you know, the Shakers wanted to build that new Jerusalem, and they would literally work every day at like a calming pace. I think they called it like the Sabbath as a Sabbath calm. So they were always working, but it like everyone was doing something and they had time to specialize in different crafts. And I'm pretty sure in the text somewhere it said like their jobs could literally or their jobs would be doing better than like the actual land mills around them, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, but I guess you could also bring up the fact that it kind of did go down pretty bad at the end with I think especially after once Lucy took over, things were okay. But then as soon as Lucy died in 1821, where they kind of went to the extremes of communism, where it was like the literal square meals that they were forced to eat, and they were kind of the to in an effort to maintain that very equal status, they kind of were stripped away of all desires and entirely, and then they were treated more like cattle, in my opinion, than actual people.
Right.
Yeah, it took away the balance of like having them feel the contentment and have that motivation to still pursue that because they weren't able to get the fulfillment that they had previously had in society. I agree.
Mhm.
Okay. Should we go to the last point?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So building on the last question, can Shakerism make a comeback? What would it take to see Gen Z take it up? So personally, I really don't think they can make a comeback, especially Gen Z. I don't know, with the whole celibacy thing, I think a lot of people sort of struggle with that nowadays, especially since we're just addicted to our phones. Like there's a bunch of stuff out there that's going to be hard for us to really, you know, move into Shakerism and believe in that whole celibacy thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like Gen Z would really have to reevaluate their values and set aside a lot of like their image and their egos, and especially because so much of like the mental, physical, and emotional well-being is dependent upon material possessions. So I think that would be hard, but also like it says that men and women should not pass by each other on the stairs, and men's clothes should never be hung besides women's clothes, which is just something in society that we see often, you know, regardless of the context. So that would be hard.
Yeah. Like I think also thinking back to just our generation nowadays, it's very common for like women to wear men's clothes, and like boyfriend jeans are like the big thing. So it's just, or like for a while at least, and it's just, it's hard to see anyone giving up their originality and like even the small things, just like the clothes that you choose to wear, or just the shows that you choose to watch, the food you choose to eat. It kind of, it almost feels like you're degrading yourself or like downgrading, because then you're giving up all these luxuries for a lifestyle that at the end of the day isn't going to be fulfilling, because their main goal is to strip you of all desire.
Yeah, I think, oh, no, you go. You got it. Okay. I think what Anna was saying about the materials thing and what you were saying, Sam, too, like I can't go a day without looking out without my phone. Like I need it to do everything. Um, but if you really, like if we really, really tried, like maybe Shakerism could make a comeback, but the celibacy thing is definitely the one thing that's like the ultimate blocking point for everyone. Like I'm sure some people can definitely go days without looking at their phones. Like I know a few friends that barely even go on their phones now. But it's just like super difficult for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, at a time when this seemed like people were taking steps forward in society, now with all our interconnectedness and even with food, like we value embracing other cultures and your different parts of even the United States, you can grow different crops elsewhere. It seems like we'd be taking steps backwards as a society, not being able to embrace everything that we've developed so far.
Yeah, especially because of how ingrained, like you said, because of how ingrained that like cultural melting pot is, you really can't take that away at this point, because it is just who we are. And like I feel like we would be doing a disservice to society by taking it away, because then you would just kind of all end up like husks walking around without anything really to do besides work.
Yeah, totally. So I think we're good. Nice job, everyone. So let me just go ahead and